Hello everyone, it's your average Joe right here, and today I just wanted to talk about this ultrasonic cleaner I got. It was a eBay special, a little under 70 bucks. It's a 3 liter size, and I got this because I wanted to clean some automotive type parts, nuts and bolts as you're working on stuff. I always try to put things back cleaner than when I took them apart, and you'll go through a lot of paper towels and stuff trying to clean bolts and rags. You can only clean with a dirty rag so good. And it just got annoying. And I also heard they're good for carburetors. I do have something we could test and just see. It's not exactly a gummed up carburetor, but it is a carburetor. We'll get to that in a minute. First, let's talk about some of the features of this one. It's like I said, 3 liter capacity. This one has digital displays. Big bummer is it's only in Celsius, and which that's not the end of the world, just a minor pain. And right here you can see the blinking is because that's what I have it set to heat to. It is 54 degrees Celsius, and it's set at 54. If I bump the temperature up, you'll see this blue light comes on. That's saying that the little 100-watt heater inside is heating up. Now it takes a very, very long time for the heater to actually heat up the fluid. I tried it yesterday on a little practice I did, and to go from like 120 degrees up to 100, I believe it was 150, it took an hour. So it's definitely not real quick about heating up the fluid. You don't have to heat up the fluid, but when you're working with grease and grime, it definitely helps. If you're using it for other than automotive reasons, there's different temperatures and settings and stuff. You can figure that out. That's not what I got it for, so I don't know. Back to the features of it. Like I said, the heater is extremely slow. Today it went from 70 degrees to Fahrenheit to, let's see what it's at now. Quick thing is, if you ever have a thermistor type temperature probe that has the open end like that, you don't want to put that directly in the fluid, not the end of it. Don't submerge the whole thing, because you don't want water to get down in there. It helps it last a little longer, but we'll see what that is. Right here, this probably isn't the most accurate gauge in the world, but it's what I got right now, so that's what I'm going to use. We'll let it heat up for a minute. While that's heating up, we'll talk about the timer function on it. It shows minute and second, and you can only set the timer in 1 minute increments all the way up to, you can't hold it down and go around the house. You have to push it 30 minutes, and then it goes back to 0. And once you start it, it does count down the seconds. So I guess that can be useful, but there's no way used to go up and down by a minute. So that's looking about 133 degrees, and like I say, from 70 degrees to 133, that was probably 2 hours around about. I didn't time it, but it was quite a long while. So if you're going to use this and you want to degrease something, you got to turn the temperature or turn it on well before you plan to use it. I put a solution of water and Simple Green in here. Simple Green's just a mild degreaser that's smells pleasant enough. The big thing about these is there's a line right along in here. You want to keep the water around that level. Not much higher, because if you put something in, it might overflow. But you definitely don't want to go lower, because there's a transducer in this. That's how it works. And it's like a speaker driver, if you will. And they don't like, they want a load on them. If there's no load and it can vibrate all over the place, it might damage that transducer. And also there's a heater in this one, like I previously mentioned, and the heater doesn't like to be run without water in it either. Go plug your hot water heater in with it empty. It's going to burn the elements out pretty quick. With this one, it's probably more of an issue of there's probably a temperature sensor separate from the heating element, and without the water to tell it where it's at, it'll just keep heating and heating until it burns itself out. But the most important thing when you're looking for ultrasonic cleaners is not the capacity necessarily. That'll tell you around abouts where it is, but the basket size, because everything that you put in this cleaner has to be put in this basket. Because the way this works is there's a little transducer down at the bottom, and it's vibrating the fluid very, very fast, 40,000 times a second. So extremely fast vibrations, and when they hit whatever you're going to clean, like in this instance, we're going to clean some random like bolts and other stuff. But when those vibrating waves, sound waves, pass through the water or cleaning solution and hit a stationary object, it causes cavitation, and little tiny micro bubbles form from what basically happens is the water hits that surface and it actually expands an air pocket in it, and then that air pocket collapses, and that's called cavitation. And that generates a tremendous amount of force, up to nearly 20,000 pounds per square inch. It sounds like a huge number because it is, but it's happening at such a small spot that no real damage is caused in this instance. Other examples, most of the time we don't want cavitation, like ship impellers and stuff like that. You try to engineer and design them in a way that you're not going to get cavitation, because when those air bubbles happen on that propeller, it actually will chip away at the propeller, and you let that happen over and over and over, and you got left with a very inefficient propeller, off balance, falling apart. So not a good thing. But in this case, you want it for cleaning. It works well. The higher the frequency, the smaller the bubbles that form, and that's more important for other things. For the average person, using it like I am probably matters really little. When you're cleaning say a carburetor, the jets in them, very, very tiny holes, and you want the higher the frequency to get in those little holes. And these are great for cleaning blind holes, stuff you just can't get into. As long as the fluid touches it in this bath, then you're good. But back to this, the basket, everything you have to clean has to go in the basket. The reason for that, like I was trying to say earlier and I got sidetracked, is this is vibrating, the fluid's vibrating. You don't want your parts vibrating with them, because if they start to oscillate with this, then that sound wave, pressure wave, is not going to clean this, because there's not going to be any cavitation taking place. There's not any energy being energy transfer taking place. So where the basket comes in is it's got these little rubber feet on them. I don't know. I have nothing to compare this to. I don't have another one. Like I said, this is a cheap one, but this is what I'm seeing. They got rubber feet, and when you set it down in there, you might want to make sure the basket's not touching on the sides. Try to center it the best you can. And but this is where you want to get the measurements. If you're trying to clean a specific item, you want to know the size of this basket before you order one. You want to make sure you're getting a big enough basket, not necessarily capacity, but the basket size needs to be big enough. This particular one, it's about 7 1/4 down at the bottom, and I'm measuring down there because you can kind of see it's got a rounded corners and shape, and it's a wider opening up top. And so that's 7 1/4 and about 8 3/4 on the top. 4 1/2 maybe. Down there it's around 3 1/2. Depends how far down you want to go. These rounded corners really mess it up. And the depth, try to get that where you can see it, about 2.5 inches, and you can go up above it a little bit. I'll show you in a minute where the water level it'll be right around in here where I have it filled up right now. And like I said earlier, this is water. It's I think I had it wrote down. Let me see. 56 ounces of water and 8 ounces of simple green. I was just seeing how much it took to really fill it up. I just decided on 8 ounces of simple green to try from there and see how it goes. So now let's get on to what we're going to actually clean. And this is one of the bolts I was going to use. And around the head it's a little dirty, but mainly the threads are just slap full of stuff. And the end of the pin. So that's something I'm going to see, because that would be a pain to wipe with a rag. And I wiped it, got some off, but it's still just packed in there. So we'll see how that turns out. Got a radiator cap. This is pretty nasty on top. That used to be painted, I think, actually. But it's got some corrosion down in the center of it. Just see what happens with that. Some other bolts. I believe that's Loctite. We'll find out. But again, the threads are pretty packed. That one's got a lot of gunk on it. And I'm just trying to show you what's going in so we can compare it to what comes out. Another bolt. Another identical one. Now here's a little worm clamp. There's some stuff down in there. We'll just see how that comes out. Another bolt. Here's a washer with a lot of crud. These actually came off a four-wheeler. I got one of the eBay specials again. I was trying to rebuild an old four-wheeler and I needed some extra parts, and this just came along with them. Some more dirt, and with this, something that's really hard to clean in the nuts is the actual threads on the inside. These aren't terrible, but you know, we'll just say there's some buildup there around the nylock washer. Just some more crud. Try not to bore you with all this, but we'll just get to there's a master link with a lot of grease built up. Brass nut. Again, the threads are packed. I was going to wipe this right quick and just see. You know, you could wipe at that all day and it not get really clean. So just keep that in mind for when we pull it out. Here's a pretty bad one. There's a lot in the threads, and we'll see how good that comes out. See if you can get a good look at that. We'll find out here in a minute, and I think that's about all of it. I won't bore you with every little piece I'm going to throw in there. Here is the interesting one, this Phillips screw. It does have quite a bit in there. It's not like packed in and nasty, but we'll just take a note of that and see how well it cleans up, and we'll go from there. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and put this all in. I'm going to move this forward a little bit so maybe you can see down inside. I have already used this once, so the water's a little dirty, but you're not missing out on much, because with the simple green in there, it was still cloudy where you couldn't really see anything happen. And carefully do this because that water is 33.6. So you see I have it just to that. You know, I probably could put a little more water in it, but it's covering the parts I got to clean right now. So we'll go with that. And there's a little puff of dirt that comes off when you first start it, but after that you don't really see anything happen. So I'm not going to bore you with all that. I got it all in there. You can see the heater's still on because I set it up to 55 and it's 51 right now. This is very loud. Even though it's ultrasonic, there's still a lot of sounds that you can hear, and they do hurt your ears. Also, if you have dogs and cats, you probably don't want to use this around them, especially dogs. They hate it. Just because you can't hear it doesn't mean they can't. So I'm not going to have you have to listen to this. It's a terrible noise. I will start it for you so you can hear it, but if you have earbuds in, go ahead and take them out because it's going to hurt your ears. I'm going to go ahead and set this for about 20 minutes, and after that we'll come back and see how it does. So here we go, watch your ears. So now we can see that it's on and cleaning, and there it's showing the seconds as it counts down, and we'll let it go from there. Okay, it's almost done now. So, like I said, it's loud. If you're in the room with this while it's running, it's not deafening, but by the time it gets done, it shuts off. Your ears are going to be ringing, and I'm sure it would cause some ear damage because it is a really high frequency, and just because you can't hear it doesn't mean that it's not hurting your ears. So just keep that in mind. Maybe stay out of the room while it's running. There we go. So now it's shut off, and the one thing I did notice is the temperature has actually gone up quite a bit, and even though the heater is supposedly off. I don't know if that's just a byproduct from it running for so long or what, but anywho, that's just something to pay attention to. I'm gonna take out the goods now and see how well it did. And I'm sure the cleaning performance changes on the temperature you heat it at. That'll stop blinking when it's turned off, the heater part. But the temperature you're heating at, what's in here, what's dirty, how long you run it for, and what kind of your solution is. This is really hot, but just grabbing the edges of it, you'll be all right. And just shake off the extra water, and things are already looking better. So let's take a look at what we got. First, the bolt. You can see it cleaned most of the thread up. Didn't quite clean it out there. Yeah, it's still really dirty, but it did a very good job at the head of it. Pretty impressed with that. I don't know, maybe I needed to turn it over halfway through or something like that. There's a joke in there somewhere. But inside the worm clamp, it did get in there very good. I'm not going to take it apart to see how well, but even on the outside, let me get a clean rag. There we go. So yeah, still a little bit on it, but not too bad really. A lot better than you're going to do when you're just cleaning with a rag. By the time a rag gets dirty, you're only cleaning so good. So that's better than I'd clean it anyway. Little radiator cap. Did a pretty good job. It got in there. I don't know how well you can see in there, but there was a lot of buildup. All that's gone. What's left of the paint is flaking off. So that needed to go anywhere, but the label's still on there pretty good. So that's good. Yeah, there's just a lot of crud in here. So that's interesting. Half the bolt is clean, half is dirty. That's actually just rust, and this isn't going to remove rust. So if you're looking for it to do that, not going to happen. This bolt was actually wore down. Somebody shipped me a shitty bolt. How about that? You can see the threads are just gnawed up and gone right there. So this was in something, holding something that was moving and shouldn't have. But the threads, not too clean on that one. Don't know what the difference is, but that's what we got. Now here, this one's pretty clean. Yeah, still some smooth on the outside, but it's not really rubbing off. So having clean threads when you're putting stuff back together is important. It helps when you're torquing stuff down, and it also can keep it from stripping or just a whole lot of stuff. So if you got a lot of grease and grime and dirt, say it falls off in the dirt, it's a good idea to clean them up, and this just makes it easier, in my opinion. Definitely something that I'm going to take with me on my next project. Right here is a washer. It was pretty grimy before. Now it's just got some rust spots that are kind of embedded in there, but there's no real, you get a nice clean white spot. There's no real, well, I guess a little bit. Still not that bad. It's not a greasy feel to it. Not that I can tell too well. This was pretty nasty before. The outside's much cleaner. The inside, you know, it still could have done a better job. Maybe I should have left it in there longer. That probably would have helped. Yeah, quite a bit's coming out of that one. So a little disappointed there. For as well as it cleaned the outside, you'd think it'd do the inside just as well. Don't know why. Maybe it was just greasier and it needed a longer time to marinate, if you will. So same deal there. That actually cleaned it out pretty good. Decent. Looks like one side of this, probably the bottom, just isn't cleaning as well as the top. Again, this bolt is done with. You can see the threads are just gnawed down right in there. It's kind of got a dip in it. Little metal shavings in there. You couldn't see that before, so it's kind of neat that now that it's clean, you can see what's actually in the threads. Piece of master link. Pretty clean. Made in Japan. So I did pretty good on those threads around the bolt. Yeah, pretty decent. Here's the one that's really interesting, is this Phillips head screw. Much better, much cleaner. Excuse me. That would be hard to... Wow, that's spotless. Nothing's coming out of that. So, and that was a pretty nasty one. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I showed you before, but that's rust. The rust isn't going to come off. But all the grease and dirt was there, is gone. Another one, you can actually see the blue in the thread locker now. Thread locking compound. Still full of grease. But the bolt itself is pretty clean, so that's interesting. Probably just need a little more time in there. And that looks almost new. That one came out very clean. Just a little bit down in there, but much better. Now you can really tell this is brass, not just where it was scored, but now it's pretty clean. You can see somebody rounded this off, kinda. And probably didn't quite have a socket on there and had that angle. And anyway, that doesn't matter. I was just pointing that out. The threads, it wasn't that dirty before. It's still about the same. Not very impressed. But so now you see that. Another clean one. Looks good to me. And now this one did make quite a bit of difference. It was packed in there quite a bit, if this would focus. It's pretty much machine metal now. It's very clean. A little bit on that side, still much better. And to clean this many in 20 minutes, you could do it by hand, but you probably have a pile of rags or, you know, a bunch of harsh cleaners on you, whatever. I've done it for years that way. Hopefully no, I won't. This master link. So it's pretty rough, but it's not like caked on there. Well, so this side, it came pretty clean. It had gunk built up in here before, but it still probably needs some more time in there. So maybe 30 minutes next time. Another good clean one. So still a huge improvement. I don't know if it's the eBay quality or what, but definitely have to give it a long time to run. But so far, so I'm happy with my purchase. Just giving you an honest opinion, and if you know anything else outside of what I'm thinking to use the ultrasonic cleaner for, let me know in the comments, or anything you want me to try, let me know. As a little bonus, I got this carburetor. This one's kind of trashed. It's the jets are all wallered out, the wells they go in. It's just not going to worry about rebuilding it. But if you can see, I don't know how well the camera's going to pick this up, but the drain for the float bowl is actually plugged up with stuff. And the rest of the carburetor is actually pretty clean because I went through it myself by hand and cleaned it, but then found out it's just kind of wore beyond fixing. But I'm going to try and clean it up. Just let you see. I already kind of did clean this by hand, so actually I cleaned it as best as I could by hand, so if it does clean up, then I'll know that it's going to be worth it. It's not quite going to fit in the basket. Some parts will be above the water. I might have to clean it half one way, half the other, and we'll just see how that goes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And see, it doesn't quite fit. In fact, the lid's not even going to fit on it. But we'll just go ahead and give it 20 minutes and see what happens. Alright, so I cleaned this, got it all dried up, and I did 20 minutes one side, flipped it over, because remember, only so much only so much stayed in the water. So I had to flip it over, do another 20 minutes. And it did clean it a little bit more than my hand cleaning. It got into some of the places I couldn't. And it was decent. Like I said, the beauty of this is, say, the jets, like this jet needle that goes down in there, those little passages and orifices get clogged, and the beauty with the ultrasonic cleaner is you can take it just like this, submerge it in the water, make sure you get the air pockets out, and it'll clean it all without you having to take it all apart. I'd still take the float bowl off. I was gonna actually clean this and use it, just to make sure you get the water out after you're done cleaning. This little hole that's plugged, after it got all the dirt out, I was able to tell is actually filled with silicone. And there's actually some silicone around the screw too. Which makes sense, because when I pulled this carburetor apart and cleaned it by hand, somebody siliconed the float bowl on, which is a no-no. I mean, whoever took this apart, they didn't know what they're doing anyway. All the screws were stripped. They just didn't do a really good job of it, and I guess they didn't have the right gasket or tore the gasket up or whatever reason, and they put silicone back. Maybe it worked for them, maybe it didn't. Probably not, because I got the ATV is non-running. But anyway, hope this information was helpful. If not, sorry I wasted your time, but this is Average Joe, and I thank you for watching, And as always, take care of yourself.